Okay, so we have a huge pro wrestling weekend. Obviously, everybody knows my son and I, we're going to Tampa this weekend, St. Petersburg. We're making the drive to Royal Rumble on Saturday night. We're very excited. Kaseya Center, Miami, Friday night. Ticketmaster.com, the last stop before Royal Rumble, is SmackDown right here in Miami. Going to be a lot of fun, as always. Austin Theory joining us here. You got the U.S. Championship belt right there behind you. I love it. Thanks a lot for joining us here. Has that been, you've done a lot so far in a very short period of time in your pro wrestling career. Is winning the U.S. Championship, is that your favorite moment so far?
Honestly, I'd have to say there's a lot of moments, but winning the United States Championship was a very big deal for me, just because that was really the first championship that I ever won in the WWE. And what's also pretty cool is being the youngest United States champion of all time. So, yeah, definitely a big achievement.
Yeah, you've done a lot, and the thing that stands out to me the most, and we'll talk about a few of them here. I mean, Austin, you were in the ring at WrestleMania 38. You were in the ring at WrestleMania with Mr. McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin at the same time. Like, when you heard that you were going to be doing that, that must have blew your mind.
Man, that was a crazy day, especially getting with Pat McAfee and having that match, but also that the night before that WrestleMania is when we kind of talked to Mr. McMahon and found out like, oh, he wants to be involved in the match a little bit and do some things. But the day of WrestleMania, I walked out of the locker room and Stone Cold Steve Austin was sitting there on a golf cart and he was about to take off. And I knew it was him and I just seen him from behind and I tapped him on the shoulder and I was like, hey, just want to introduce myself. I'm Austin. And he was like, very nice to meet you. I'll be seeing you later tonight. And I was like, what? So that was crazy. And then going out there with him. And I just remember that moment out there in Texas and him and Mr. McMahon were standing in the middle of the ring together and he's looking Mr. McMahon up and down. And then he gives me that look to the corner. And that's when I knew to come out swinging. And it ended with a stunner. But hey, man, I'm not too mad about that.
How hard did you think to yourself beforehand? I got one chance to sell this stunner. I got to get it right.
So honestly, as soon as I knew that, hey, this is where we're going today, and obviously him saying he's going to see me later tonight, I mean, it has to be a stunner, right? And I was hoping so, but I had this this specific way that I could take a stunner and I could fly like pretty high up in the air. And I didn't want to tell anybody though, because people might say, oh, like there's been other people that have sold it really good. Like maybe not try to do that. But I was like, none of those conversations. I'm not going to ask anybody. Stone Cold hits me with a stunner. I'm going flying.
And Pat's was great too, actually, where he right after you, where he spit out the beer after he took
right.
the stunner. I mean, I'm watching at home, okay? And it was such an amazing segment because we got Stone Cold the night before, and that was awesome. So I don't think anyone was expecting it to be in your segment too the next night. And then all of a sudden, Stone Cold's music hits like, oh my God. So you're in the ring. I know you grew up a pro wrestling fan. How do you keep it together in that moment, man? Because you have to know, oh my God, this is so cool.
I'd have to say, like, the thing about the WWE is like, once you're here, you obviously got to be ready and they're going to throw you, into the deep end and you got to swim with the sharks. And if you kind of look at that picture, I believe at the time at that WrestleMania, I think 25, and I'm standing next to Mr. McMahon, the guy that runs WWE, that's created so much for WWE. And then here comes Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I felt like I was just, living in an era because we all know how big of a deal it was when McMahon went against Austin. And I was like, wow, I'm a part of this now. So, but I have to say, out of that, whole experience, the greatest thing was watching Mr. McMahon take the stunner.
Amazing,
that was the best.
Right? Amazing. I remember when it happened and people were like, oh my God, it was a terrible stunner. I go, you're crazy. That was an amazing stunner, and we're going to remember it the rest of our lives.
Forever. There was a lot of moving pieces there.
So cool. What is your earliest childhood memory of pro wrestling?
I remember when DX would mess with the Spirit Squad and they dumped like poop on top of them and everything. I remember John Cena in the ring with Johnny Nitro at the time, and he had Melina with him. And John Cena was just roasting Johnny Nitro and Melina, saying crazy things that probably wouldn't be said nowadays. But man, just like how crazy this whole world seemed to me. And then these guys would fight each other.
Yeah.
I was just like, all right, I think this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
So you're a young dude, and obviously you have to know some of the history of pro wrestling. And with the WWE Network, Peacock, and all this stuff is available now. At what point did you go back and watch Mr. McMahon versus Stone Cold, The Rock versus Stone Cold, the Attitude Era? Like, when did you go back and decide to watch all of that?
Honestly, I started watching when I was 8 years old, and that's when I seen Monday Night Raw for the first time. Then I learned about SmackDown, and I think WWE is one of those cool things when like you're interested in it. There's so many avenues, like yeah, there's the Attitude Era, but then there's like the era of Hulk Hogan. There's the era of when you have Ric Flair and Ultimate Warrior, and you have ECW with Paul Heyman running it. Like there's so many different avenues. So I think even being a young kid, like I found a lot of that stuff, and YouTube, I'd go on YouTube and, oh, wow, like Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Mr. McMahon. Like, wow, like, okay. But just seeing all these different things. And I think for me as a kid, when I was watching, whenever a legend would return, let's say a Stone Cold would return for maybe a promo segment or something like that, I would go and look up, whoever came out, like their history and what they've done so I could understand it. But that's what's really cool about WWE is, man, it's so worldwide.
So we got SmackDown this Friday night, Kaseya Center, Ticketmaster.com. You can get your tickets now. And then, of course, Saturday, Royal Rumble in St. Petersburg, which is going to be so fantastic. Can you recall how you felt? First of all, how many Royal Rumbles have you been in so far?
So I've been in 2 Royal Rumbles, I believe. So this will be my third one.
Do you remember what it felt like the first? I mean, hey, you grew up watching pro wrestling. Royal Rumble is everybody's favorite. So do you remember what it felt like? Your music hits and it's your turn. You're entering the ring. You're running down to the ring. Do you remember what it felt like the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember coming out with the cell phone that I used to have where I'd beat up people and take those selfies. I believe I was number 3, and AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura were in the ring. And if anybody knows the history there of those two in the Tokyo Dome in Japan, I mean, it's really cool to be the third guy to go out there and enter the Rumble with them. But I just soaked it in, man. I mean, it's so cool. And it's one of those matches that it always stays like so exciting because, you might see a superstar you really like, but, in another minute or two, you're going to have another superstar come out and you never know who it's going to be. You don't know if it's a current guy on the roster or maybe it's a Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Now, John Cena was your favorite growing up and you were in a program with him recently. Was it everything that you wanted it to be? I'm sure that was super special for you.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where like seeing where I am and what I've done so far, and getting to go out there with him, and a lot of the things he said, like saying like, oh, you don't believe in you, and you don't have it here, you don't have it here, and then he pointed to my balls and said, you don't have it there. I think it's just one of those things to like he wants to see me as honestly, like I think as a good guy, you know what I mean? I think eventually, but we have to see, because I feel like the decisions that I've made and the things that I've done have worked for me, because there's nobody in the history of the WWE that's been the youngest US champ, nobody that's been the youngest Mr. Money in the Bank. And honestly, those moments, getting the stunner by Stone Cold at WrestleMania, getting thrown off the top of the Elimination Chamber by Brock Lesnar, wrestling John Cena at WrestleMania, the guy that literally inspired me to get into WWE, and I beat him at WrestleMania in front of my family. And let's even say The Rock, the newest member on the board of directors at TKO. I told him to shut his mouth. It doesn't matter what The Rock has to say. So for me, man, it's that whole experience getting to work with John. It's just really eye-opening, and it makes you see things a lot of different ways.
So you mentioned that was eye-opening. I love hearing about the locker room. Look, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, even though this is a sports show. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan since I was a little boy. I love hearing about the locker room culture and the respect that everybody has to have. It's such an interesting behind the scenes business to me. Do you have a moment like who helped you in the locker room understand the way that you need to conduct yourself?
I have to give that to Jay Uso and also Jimmy Uso. When I got pulled up to the main roster and I was doing a lot of dark matches, they would always watch and they would always give me advice, and I could always go to them about things and hey, do less here. You don't need to do that much, or try this. The crowd will react here. And still to this day, they help me out. Even with coming up with ideas or even my matches on SmackDown now. They always watch and they're always there, giving good advice. So definitely the Usos, man.
What is something about your business? You know, Obviously it's low hanging fruit when people hear you like pro wrestling and they're like, oh, that stuff's fake. What is something about your business that you wish people understood better?
Well, I mean, that's a common thing, right? But it's one of those things where, just because something is predetermined, or it's, like almost like a show, you know the things that are going to happen. But at the same time, what's so cool about the WWE and the superstars is we're creators, we're artists. We get to go out there and okay, this is what you need. Well, okay, this is how we're going to get there, and this is what we're going to do to make that story point work. But, I guess people forget about gravity, and they forget about, getting hit and taking power bombs and getting hit with chairs or whatever it is. Uh, there's no skipping the scene on that. You got to take it. You got to feel that pain, And I mean, I had a scary incident, 2 weeks ago with Carmelo Hayes, the loser that I'm going to be facing this Friday in Miami. Just a small tweak. His foot got caught under the rope when I went for a move, and we just kind of landed right on the top of our heads. And I ate more of that, but it's just one of those things, like it's a it's not ballet. It's a tough business, and that's just how it goes. So I think, like people often like to just throw that out there, like, oh, it's not real. So this is why, like I don't watch it, but that doesn't make any, sense, because how many things nowadays are real? I think pro wrestling is WWE is one of the realest things out there. If you really sit back and watch it and see what these guys are saying to each other, and the work and the art that we're doing in the ring it's untouchable.
Austin, you played a heel for most of your career with WWE. Is anything off limits as far as fan interaction? With them yelling stuff at you, all that. Does it all just come with the territory, or is something off limits?
No, I like everything, honestly. I think when you see me, whatever you see on TV, whatever your perception is, however you're feeling, whatever is entertaining you and makes you want to have whatever reaction it is that you have. I think, people are held accountable for that. You can do whatever you want to do. You can tell me I'm the greatest. You can tell me I suck, but I've always been the same about compliments. Like I feel like they all mean the same thing, because at the end of the day, it's you that's got to make everything work. It's you that got to, put in the work and do everything. So I think, hearing something good, sure, it motivates you for a little bit, but, even hearing something bad, like it's just words, and it's up to you what you're going to do with that. Because at the end of the day, somebody's opinion doesn't really dictate anything about you.
Austin, who is the most physical you've been in the ring with, and why is it obviously Brock Lesnar?
Oh man, I would give it to Brock Lesnar, but Big Sheamus, man. That's a hard hitting guy to get in the ring with, man. You'll leave the ring definitely with a mark of him on you. He'll leave you with some tattoos.
It's crazy when he does the 10 beats of the drum, whatever it's called, and everybody's got the red on their chest. It looks like it hurts so bad.
Yeah, I wish, it used to stop at 10, take 10 of those. Now it's like 30 on some of the live events. So yeah, make sure you go to a live event. You can see 30 of those.
Yeah. This Friday, SmackDown, Ticketmaster.com, Kaseya Center here in Miami. Then, of course, Royal Rumble on Saturday night, which is going to be so much fun. Austin, thanks a lot for the time here today. I appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way, man. It's going to be a really fun weekend here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.